I still love my Porsche with a lot of roaring sound, and I will not replace it with any EV. Collect all the cans and recyclables, bring it to the recycling center where we do it for living. By the end of the week, he was coming back with a lot of money, a lot more than his peers. There is nothing called waste. Rather, the wealth is embedded where what is they called waste.
Hello and welcome to the CareMeaner podcast. I'm Lauren Cohen, and with me today is the advisory chairman of Sharif Metals Group, Dr. Salam Al-Sharif. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Sharif Metals Group is one of the Middle East's leading recyclers of ferrous and non-ferrous metals, and you manage everything from procurement and processing of large-scale recycling of materials like copper, aluminium, zinc, and nickel alloys. But you, in your personal capacity, have also received many accolades over your 40-year history with the company. Recently, I believe you've been named as the Middle East Sustainability Champion by the Middle East Waste and Recycling magazine. And you've twice been named amongst the world's top 100 most influential recyclers. In what way do these recognitions encourage your continued efforts?
Well, I mean, it's always they say that give credit where credit is due. And I believe we genetically have come from a family which has done the metals recycling by craftsmanship. My dad and my grandpa was in the business of Coppersmiths, generated into the foundry alloys. We were youngsters, we were born with having to put the summer nice holidays back in the yard of really doing a lot of hard work, earning the money, learning how the bottoms-up approach really pays off and builds all the future career forward. So we did believe, first of all, that the raw material is a precious materials and there is nothing called waste. Rather, the wealth is embedded where what is they called waste, right? And that is being proven over the years after having brought up some of the companies into a high level of sustainability with recognitions by converting the end-of-life material into precious materials. We call it precious in the sense that raw material has become one of the rare elements available for the sustainability, and we really believe that using the end-of-life metal is the way to go forward rather than having to abuse nature and dig all the minerals out of the earth, leaving it for future generations to go. And along the side, we see that commercial value is also added up and recognition by a lot of the developing countries, including the G20s, who care for climate action and the decarbonizations and so forth and so on. And that's really a byproduct of what we do in the recycling and the reuse of the end-of-life material and to bringing it to the supply chain of the industrial wheel, if you like.
Waste to value, which you've just touched on, is at the heart of your business model. Can you give us examples of how recycling metals contributes to the reduction of emissions?
Well, I mean, it's a nice question because a lot of people think it's only either commercial or it's either environmental, but the fact is it is running side by side. As you take the end-of-life metal into your recycling chain, whether it's, I'll give you a very little example, not to act like an academic discussion, more of very practical, down to earth, because we've done this for a living. And even when I was a little child, we've done this part of our chain. We had gotten the end-of-life aluminum from the automobiles, whether it's aluminum or the end-of-life battery. When the car dies
Yes.
the battery goes out and, to the driver, it is a new life of a battery. But for the recycler, this is the beginning of the life that bringing that piece of metal into the supply chain by converting it through processing of recycling and industrial chemical treatment to become the ingot or the raw material that will substitute the virgin metals, which comes right out of the mines. And interestingly, the first product that is produced really brings out the most emissions of the carbon emissions, could be up to 85, 90% of the
Yes.
carbon oxide emissions, and consumes the utmost part of the energy to bring it in. Once it's a product, and at the end of life product, that particular component carries in an intrinsic value of energy and reduction of carbon emissions. You take it into production for another product, you have already bypassed the, if you like, the nasty part of the environmental contribution, and it will only generate 5% of carbon emissions, and it will only consume 5 to 10% of the energy compared to the big, humongous
Wow.
amount which was carried at the initial of the process. And with that, a lot of people think, well, is this really happening? Now, realizing a lot of the primary aluminum producers and the metals producers nowadays, today they have to carry a passport for their metals to run cross
Yes.
countries. If they're
Traceability.
not labeled with green billets or products, they will be faced with a lot of levies on the other side when at the importing countries, which realizing that unless you have a recycled product into your metal, you are still not green, you are brown. So here is where our industry has been mostly recognized in the past 1 decade, not really too long ago, that this is part of the new generation of the green
Mm.
production
Mm.
rather than being considered in the old days, 40 years ago, it was considered as a substandard industry. Now we are received at the biggest podiums of the
Okay.
economic, if you like, agendas, and we are considered as a very integral part of the economy and essential for the production circle, which brings all the circularity in a proper order.
So much info, which ties into one of my next questions. Quality, traceability, and responsible sourcing have become major themes in the metals industry. How have you used technology and innovation to stay ahead in these areas?
Well, I mean, first of all, the hands-on experience is important because technology alone will not get you going. You first have to really be able to have the required expertise to identify the metal up to a certain extent, which will be the prerequisite for you to go into a more refinement of quality control, where you can use the eddy current machines, which do a lot of help in sorting. It has a lot of smart vision technology. It includes the AIs also now into really separating out some of the elements after you cut it into smaller pieces. And before you really supply your product into the uh, manufacturing line, you have to test the quality of that product. Just like when you go and buy gold, you need to know, is it 18 karat, 21 karat, whatever, before you pay for it. So here is, it goes down to the very minute elements of traceability to ensure that the producer takes your raw material and produce the correct element or the product without any compromise on the quality. Interestingly, that the metals has infinite recyclability. It does not disappear or evade. That is the best characteristics about the metals. It is indefinitely recyclable, but one has to be smart of how to really bring it into the production line, ensure he knows the quality. Everything needs a know-how. So with that, I think we'll be able to really deliver the right product and ensure that the environment and the regulations are also uh, taken in consideration for every bit of our process.
Yes. Has the industry changed with the introduction of electric vehicles?
Well, yes, indeed, we have seen a lot of the components of the automobiles are no more available, like the engine block. There is no engine. There's no the traditional lead acid battery, which is required for your vehicle. It has reduced the amount of components of aluminum parts into it, but there are still, if you like, people who believe the hybrid vehicles. I mean, look, I don't want to be a critic, but I went with my family one time to Abu Dhabi. My son bought a car which is electric, and he was with 90% charge. When we went to Abu Dhabi, came back, it was only 10%. So we had to drop at one mall to have a charge for 2 hours. We had nothing to do but to kill some time and recharge. So I'm not complaining about EVs, but I'm saying, yes, there is a revolution that has changed the automobile industry from a conceptual point of view. At the same time, there are challenges into the recyclability. The lithium-ion batteries have a lot of challenges nowadays into recyclability, unlike the lead-acid batteries.
Sure.
So they're still figuring out what's the best way to really recycle those rare earth minerals. Difficult to bring into the supply chain initially, difficult to recycle, so they have still some challenges.
You sound like you have your reasons for wanting to stay, which also brings me to...
Well, I still love my Porsche with a lot of roaring sound, and I will not replace it with any EV. Not that I'm complaining.
and it's easier for your company to recycle when you're finished with it.
Yeah, there you go.
Which also, you know, talking about technology, Sharif Metals is a fourth generation family owned business, and you now work alongside your four sons. How do you protect a company's legacy like this, you know, with such a rich history, but also at the same time adopt new technologies to move forward?
Well, you got two technologies to adapt. One is the technical technology, which you got to bring it in and make sure that we are more efficient than what we used to operate some 20 years ago. The other technology is how to drive the mindset. The mindset of the new generation is not like my generation and my father's generation. We did it for being good sons to our father back then. At the time of we received the training, we realized it's not a easy buck that comes around. You got to earn your money. And we have noticed as we grew up that those were the ingredients and the prerequisites to really to work with the laborers, appreciate hard work is the way to go forward, and earn your money. It ain't gonna come your way the easy way, that's for sure. Now the new generation think, well, it's like life is easy, so why not to expect? And I tell my sons, look, if if you find it easy at the initial stage, you will have a more difficult life at the end of the tunnel. You might as well earn your money. I have a governance which really takes care of my sons to where now give credit where credit is due. Everybody looks after his own department, or if you like, the profit center as it is his baby. He has to look into it with passion and realize it is the way to move forward. So there is always a reward at the end of the day, and hard work pays off. So we do have the governance, and we do create the, if you like, the competition, the friendly competition environment is very much required to give that, if you like, what we call it, the disruptive atmosphere in a good way. If you're in a very comfortable water, you will never learn how to swim unless you see a high tide. You know, I swam at South Africa, by the way, and it was really high waves. And if I wasn't a good swimmer, I would have now really had a difficult time. So yes, you do really have to get him trained to what the life is coming up. It's not an easy life coming forward, regardless of the technology that is coming higher and AIs. At the end of the day, you really have to have the ingredients of the good old school and the traditional requirements to bring business up. It's not going to come on the AI as you sit back and watch your laptop or whatever smart gadgets you'd have to combine. I'm not really against technology. I would love to learn every bit of it, but sometimes the good old school pays off, realizing you got the feel for what you do, not the screen that it shows all the numbers. Something behind the screen would be really worth a while checking every now and then.
The circular economy is becoming a global priority. How would you explain its value to businesses that still see recycling as a cost center rather than an opportunity?
Well, look, circular economy, the whole world is in circularity. I mean, if you look into the planet's orbit is in circularity. The entire resources which God has given us in circularity. We got oceans and rivers, they evaporate by sun, make the clouds, we get the rain back, we have the underground. All the crops, they drop the leaves after, autumn time, they again get back into the spring. It's a circularity. Our business also is in circularity. If you just avoid the circularity, you are not able to cycle forward. I'm sure everybody here gets on the bikes, and if it is a linear, you will never be able to cycle. So that momentum has got to be maintained. One has to realize the resources are limited. they are quite finite. And this is the wisdom by Almighty. He could have endless resources, but as the takeaways, those finite resources, mankind is obliged to make a reuse of them, and he's not gonna get another Earth coming down the line because they abuse the first Earth God has given us on the orbit. It's only one Earth, it's only one planet, and we people come and go, but the resources remain to be precious. Using what it's been on the urban mining, I call on top of the earth, leave the reserved resources in the inner of the earth for the future generations to come only when it is badly required. So that is the way, even those plastic bottles here we see, they get discarded, but they end up in getting garments. For a lot of football players, they wear from PP, they make their uniforms. Our cans, our household items, end of life, they are raw material for essential industries, without which it will become much more expensive. It is paying off because it's much more affordable, and on a hand-to-mouth reach, the end-of-life material goes into the production line in less than 2 to 3 months. It depends on what is the lifetime of that product. The underground mines will only bring metals out after 3 to 5 years. It depends on what you're mining for.
Okay. It's a beautiful analogy about the plants dropping their leaves and the rainwater.
Absolutely.
Very true, very true.
Absolutely.
You seem very passionate about education. What role do you think that young people in schools play in shaping a future where recycling is second nature?
Look, I mean, education, in my opinion, is part of the alignment of one's vision, because you can always plant seeds into the fresh minds, which will really grow into a lot of useful crops as they age up. Education is required, and that, I believe, is not only on the academia. My son, when he was 6 years old, he had to get his pocket money. I gave him very limited to where he thought it's really not enough. And then he complained. I said, you can make triple or even 5 times as much. What do I do that? Collect all the cans and recyclables, bring it to the recycling center where we do it for living. And by the end of the week, he was coming back with a lot of money, a lot more than his peers. So education starts at home. When they go to school, the academics also enlight within the program of education. What is the Ministry of Education, which goes with the Ministry of Economics and so forth, and it is rubbing on them. But I still believe that practicality is required for them to put the theory with the practice, so as they believe in it. And unless they are in a need of the money, they will not go that far. So I always tell everybody who's got children, don't overspend because you think you're a good dad. That will spoil them rotten at the end of the journey, and you will be the one to be blamed. Be somehow cautious and caring in the sense, caring in the sense that I want you to carry that message forward, but not only by theory, but by practicality. And in this comfortable surroundings we have and high technology, unless somebody needs something, he will not go after it. So I make sure that the new generation go and work their hearts out, earning their money. So when they spend it cautiously.
Looking ahead, what is your long-term vision for Sharif Metals and for the recycling industry? And dare I say, as a recycling influencer, what type of innovations do you think will define the decade ahead of us?
Well, I think as an advisor, I've been through it. I've been in this business for 40 years, and I've realized it was commercially paying off. Sustainability is there because as we grew from the insignificant industrial image into the most important and crucial business that has been led by the green products and the passport labeling for the end products. We have been labeled as one of the essential industries for the supply chain, and I believe by genetic uh, concern of the circularity, the elements do not vanish. They have infinite life. If we have that vision forward, we have to simply bring it into the supply chain wisely, smartly, and timely to ensure commercially it's viable, environmentally it is sound, and we are helping the climate action and the renewable energy really in place, not by theory, but practicality. So hold on to your resources. Okay, they become more precious every time. You help the environment, you help your business, you're more competitive, and you got a sustainable business ahead of you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Sharif, for being with us today. Certainly a man that champions the planet while also doing good business.
Well, appreciate it. It's always nice to really get a little of fame wall ahead of you or behind your desk to realize that people acknowledge and appreciate what you do. So it's a green life ahead of us.
Let's hope so.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.